call the roll. Jacob Espinosa, aye. James Holt.
Aye.
Michael Lepore.
Aye.
Tony Garber. Aye. Sarah Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mark Easby.
Aye.
Pablo Herrera Fuentes.
Aye.
Members, during the course of the meeting, please wait to speak until recognized by the chair. Once you have been recognized, please state your last name. Audience members are asked to sign in on the attendance roster. Public interested parties' feedbacks may be heard during the public interested parties' feedback period, if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. The meeting is called to order.
This is Sylvie. Great job. Okay, so first thing is approval of the agenda. So if somebody could, if there's any questions on the agenda, now would be the time to ask. But if you don't have any questions, then somebody needs to make a motion to approve the agenda.
This is LaFleur. Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Who would like the second? Please, Tony Garber, I'll second. Tony? The motion has been made to approve the agenda. I'll call the roll. Jacob Espinosa, aye. James Halby?
Aye.
Michael Lepore?
Aye.
Tony Garber? Aye. Sarah Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mark Easy?
Aye.
Pablo Herrera Fuentes?
Aye.
Okay. Motion to approve the agenda accepts.
Perfect. So this is Sylvie again. We're on item number 4. So Jacob, you should have another script that says executive session script across the top.
Yes, thank you. The respiratory therapist and polysomnographic technologist licensing board will now meet at the executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 and ORS 676.595 for the purpose of considering information or records that are exempt by the law from the public disclosure related to cases at 9:07 a.m. on October 9, 2020. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are required to leave the room. Sylvia, are there any representatives of the news media in the audience?
No.
No. Okay. So recognizing there is no news media in attendance, all other audience members are asked to leave the room during the executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions. We are now in executive session.
Are you guys ready? Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, the respiratory therapist and polysomnographic technologist licensing board will now exit executive session and reconvene open session at 10:05 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken in executive session. Members of the audience are welcome to return, and representatives of the media may once again report all board discussions and actions. Sylvia?
Yep, you're good. So, just so you guys know, because you can't see what I'm doing, obviously, I unmuted the public phone. However, we have not heard anybody log into the public. If it makes a noise, we'll know if somebody is logged in or not. So we'll move on. We are on the agenda under item number 6. So this is a bunch of things that the board's going to have to discuss and vote on. First one is regarding a complaint. So it is proposed that in case number 18-8841 to issue a civil penalty in the amount of $250. And if somebody could say their name and so moved, that would be fabulous.
This is LaFleur. I'll move to accept the motion.
James, second the motion.
Very good. So we have a motion. Motion has been made. I'll call roll. Jacob Espinosa. Aye. James Hall.
Aye.
Michael Lepore.
Aye.
Tony Garber. Aye. Sarah Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Mark Easby.
Aye.
Pablo Herrera Fuentes. Okay, well, the motion has been passed.
Okay, so this is Sylvie. So we are on rules. We've got a lot of information for you. In your packets, you should be, hopefully everybody has their packets up. We're going to have a lot of information, and this is going to be hard because Sammy also is in the room and can do the typing. If we need to change verbiage on the rules, we'll be able to do that here, and then I can articulate to you what it looks like. Normally when we work on rules, everybody's in the room because we're wordsmithing at the time, but hopefully we won't have to do too much. You'll see that she's got a rule schedule. One of the things that we need, and hopefully all of you already have this on your calendar because I do believe Maria has reached out to you, but December 9th at 9 a.m. we'll have a board meeting. It'll basically be called to order, approve, and then you'll have to review all the public comments that we received, and then you'll approve permanent rules. If there's any cases that Bob needs you to review, then we'll add that to the agenda, but it will not have all the reports and all that other stuff, so it'll be more of a very specific kind of board meeting. So you're going to work on rules today. You'll, at the end of the day or at the end of the time that you're working on them, you'll adopt proposed rules. We'll send the notice out in the Oregon Bulletin and have public comment, and then you'll review those. Then the rules will go permanent January 1 of 21. So at one point we'll vote on that. Do you want them voting on that now, or do you want to wait till they review all the rules
Wait till
first?
they review everything.
Okay, so we'll hold off on the vote on that until you reviewed everything. So the next thing in your packet is the Rules Advisory Committee. So Sammy and a group met, and hopefully you've read through this. This is basically their review of the rules. They did a full review of the rules, so we'll go through all that. This is some of their recommendations. Any questions on their memo? Okay, let's get into the meat of it. All right, so we are on draft rules. Page 1, not page 1 of the whole entire document, page 1 of the rules. So one of the things, and Sammy can go through this, she's sitting here, and if you can't hear her when she starts talking, we can move one of the microphones.
I have one.
That's for this phone.
Oh.
And so anything in red are obviously the changes, correct?
Correct. Additions. And changes. And deletions.
So we've done the chair, because one of the things that Sammy had worked on is to make sure and align all the statutes with the rules, and in your statutes it says that you're supposed to have a rule about the electing the chair and vice chair and the rules and all that stuff. So that's what that first little section is. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Oh, you guys are going to whiz through this. Obviously your rules hadn't been totally reviewed since we were an independent agency, so the word agency is being deleted because we are not an agency anymore, we are an office. So that's why she's deleting number 2. She did add in some more acronyms. Obviously the office means us. Anybody have any questions on definitions? And if I'm going too fast, just tell me to slow down. And I'm only going to address issues where she is making changes. But if there's issues of spots that you think a change needs to occur that she has not changed, you can also let us know that too.
Yeah, it left all the rules in, even if there was or wasn't a change, so they could see it.
Yeah. Okay, move on to...
Sylvie, this is Tony. I have a quick question.
Go for it.
I'm looking at it in black and white because I just popped out of another meeting so I can address a couple of different things.
Okay.
On the page, I can't tell if ABSM, the American Board of Sleep Medicine, was in red or not in red.
It's in red, so that's new.
Yes, I have serious concerns about that, and I see some of their arguments, but it's a backdoor to something else that I can't support.
You want to jump ahead to that?
Do we want to jump ahead to why we're... So, just so everybody knows who hasn't gone through the rule writing procedure before, all the definitions are in the beginning, and then the meat of it is later. And so, if we don't use American Board of Sleep Medicine, then it needs to not be in the definitions. So that's kind of where Tony's coming from. So let's skip forward to where that is being used, and I'm assuming that's part of polysom's.
Yes, there are licensing requirements and examination, approved examinations.
So let's get to,
Oh God, there's a lot of polysome stuff. Polysome DS. Seriously. So, in the application process, it was
what page of rules are you on?
page 6.
Page 6 of your rules, not of the whole packet, that,
Set 331-710-0050.
I'm trying to follow along on paper. Which page is that? Is that the bottom of the one marked page 2
Page 6.
that has a step at the top?
no. So are you, so just so that we're making sure we're looking at the same thing. So are you looking at a set of rules that has a gray bar down on the whole right side of the piece of paper has a gray bar?
No, I'm not looking at that. That's a couple pages back further.
So just have them go to 331-710-0050.
So we're on rule number 331-710-0050, where it says application requirements for polysomnographic technologist license.
$0050?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so what they did, and you could see from my rules reports, that they contemplated this for a long time. Because they saw some benefit in the exam, but they only saw and some risk. And so what they deduced it to is people that were coming in through the educational program with the degree, or the people coming in through, which is Pathway 1, or Pathway 2, having the 18 months of experience and training on the job. Only those two pathways would allow for the ABSM exam. Not the ones who just do the A-step program or reciprocal, or by endorsement. In fact, some of those don't even have an exam. But they felt that it's a recommendation. It is a smaller exam. It's only 50 questions. It's cheaper. But they felt if somebody was going through an associate's degree or the 18 months of work experience and training, that they would have enough knowledge to just take that exam and move on. But you can keep it with the RTPT. It's totally up to you guys.
So my concern with that, this is Tony, my big concern with that is if you go and look at the AST exam that they're proposing for licensure for Oregon State polysomnography, you can actually sit for that exam with 80 hours. Yes, you have to do your certain number of sleep tests, but it's 80 hours of instruction. You just have to do the A-step program. And again, this is why we shut it down in the beginning for those who aren't really familiar with the history, but I could be a truck driver and 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, I would have everything I need to sit for the A-step. And my biggest problem is we go down below that, we look at the COARP, which is why we accept the NBRC for respiratory, and we have the KHEP, which is why we accept the BRPT for polysomnography, but A-step goes around KHEP, so they're not an accredited program. So it is, in my opinion, it is a knockoff credential to circumvent all of the safety measures we have in place for licensure.
Well, I guess the first thing is people who get the 80 hours in the A-step do not qualify to take that exam to get licensure in Oregon. It would be only people who went to the degree program, the 2-year degree program in polysomnography, or the people getting on-the-job training for 1,800 hours. Everybody else would not qualify to do that exam in Oregon.
Well, they would qualify to do the exam because it's not our exam. It just wouldn't qualify for them for a license.
Yes. Good. Well said.
So, Tony, is that your, I want to talk through this because this is adding something in that you guys have all agreed that should not be added in. So I don't want to add something in that you guys are not comfortable with if they haven't updated or if things haven't changed and you guys are still uncomfortable with it, but that's what this discussion is. So that was just a recommendation, but now is when you have that discussion.
Okay.
And if Tony doesn't feel comfortable with that, I want to hear, does everybody else not feel comfortable also? Or, kind of, because this is where you get to talk about all of that.
So,
Yeah, this
so
is
this is
before,
Jacob.
I remember going through this discussion years ago.
Yep.
And I don't see anything that's changed to include it now when it wasn't included then. I mean, if anything, it would have been included then, not now.
This is Jacob. I agree. It's a watered down license, unfortunately, and it's not going to help our state in any way.
I do have their examination stats. So in 2015, 20 people passed, 7 failed, 76% pass rate. In 2016, 32 passed, 13 failed, 71% pass rate. 2017, 55 passed, 27. They have a very low marker of people taking the exam. I'm not even sure anybody would want to. I have no idea. But that's what they gave me back in February.
Yeah, this is before. That's even more of a reason why not to include it.
Well, and I think because I'm remembering back our conversation years and years and years ago, back when we created PolySom, we had this discussion. They were too new. They weren't, because we've talked about these guys, but it doesn't sound like they have improved or any different than they were back then. They just now have been around longer.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, the RST is the equivalent of the CPSGT for the BRT. Is it a degree or not a degree? Is it a license or credential? Sure, but does it serve anything? I get to see it be of any value. Anyone who gets a CPSGT is because they just want to add some numbers or letters at the end of their last name on their progression to get the RPSGT. But I've yet to see anyone that uses that as a valid license.
And this is Sylvie. Your job is to create a standard, and if you don't feel comfortable lowering this, and if you feel that this is lowering the standard, then there's no need to add it in. It's just because the group gave you a recommendation does not mean you have to follow it. So
I will say they struggled with this one the most. And if I recall, they basically said, well, let's put it on the table and let the board decide. This is a recommendation.
Okay. So let's go through. Go ahead.
This is LaFleur. So maybe we should just find out if anybody thinks it should be included. Maybe that's a better question to ask at this point.
It's just a proposal.
Anyone on the board.
Well, there's your answer.
So, crickets.
I know, right? So let's get that out. So okay, so we're going to delete the ABSM out of definitions
And RST. All the way to the bottom.
and RS, which is the registered sleep technician. Those two things are going to be deleted, correct? And Sammy's doing a non-verbal yes. And then she is going to delete that out of the pathway so that is not an acceptable exam.
And out of the exam section.
And out of the exam section, which is...
It's past all of the licensure requirements.
It's 712-0010.
Yes, so it'll be deleted out of that.
Yep.
So that is not a board-approved exam. So number 4 will be gone.
Correct.
Works for me.
Okay, much better. Okay, now that we've had that discussion, let's go back to definitions. Okay. Okay, I don't see anything else. That was a major
That was one of the major changes.
change. Okay. All right, let's get, so now,
We'll have to delete number 15.
yes, yes, she took that off there. See, this is why it's so hard, because she has it up on the board, and we can see it and you cannot. Okay, so I'm on page 5 of the rules, so 331-710-0015. So this is for those of you who are looking at the one that has the comment over on the right-hand side. We're on number 4, which talks about the respiratory therapy temporary license is valid for 6 months and may not be renewed. So and I know it's a unique situation, but this is where you guys can have your conversations. So it's kind of an we're living in an odd environment at the moment. With COVID-19, with the fires, all that stuff. So if somebody is not able to do something, as in because you get your temporary license while you're waiting to take exams and get your permanent license. 6 months seems like an awful long time, but our current situation, it's not. So what happens if somebody doesn't get their permanent license within 6 months? They cannot renew this, so this is where we're going to have a discussion. Do we want it to where they can maybe have one extension, or they can reapply for another temporary? And I can give you the pros and cons of the stuff, but this is kind of where we want you to have a discussion about trying to accommodate a few people who may not be able to do this within 6 months.
This is Sarah. So when we're talking about renewing the temporary license, is that, are you kind of inferring that they were unable to take the NBRC exam within the 6 months to apply for a license, or?
Yeah. So this is Sylvia, that is correct. So you haven't, and just so you know, we're going to have to wordsmith, because you cannot renew a temporary license. Temporary licenses are non-renewable. So we could...
Okay. I just looked...
Go ahead.
I was just to throw out the piece of information. Our students who graduated in June had 0 issues taking the exam within a month or 2 of being released to take it. So I know June is the end of, well, I know things have calmed down a little bit by then, but there wasn't a 6-month gap where they couldn't take the NBRC exam.
This is Sylvia, and that's fine. We don't have to add in there. I just want you guys to have a discussion about this. The other thing that we could do is say that they could reapply for a temporary, and that will be less likely for them to do, because then they have to fill out another application. So they have to pay another application fee and another temporary license fee if they don't get it done in 6 months. So it's not financially beneficial to them in any way, shape, or form, but it is an option in case of some emergency. And we don't have to do it either. This is just where you guys have a discussion.
And I talked to Derek, and he said he hadn't had any issues with this.
Yeah, and nobody's had any issues. We just want you to address it.
Yeah, that was my question. So nobody's called and said, hey, listen, my house burned down, out in Clackamas County somewhere, and I haven't had a computer, I haven't, this, that, or the other thing. I mean, we haven't come up against these situations yet, is that correct?
Not in this profession.
Not in this profession. Remember, you are doing a full rule review, and so we are bringing things to your attention, so
Sure.
that you are looking and discussing everything. Does not mean you have to change it, so keep asking those kind of questions. And no, we have not had this issue coming up with any of your applicants. We just want you to have the discussion about it.
Yeah, this is James, and I'm opposed to changing as it shows in number 4 there under the temporary respiratory therapy license.
Okay.
This is Jacob. I echo that. I think if we change this, we would need to change the one for sleep as well. And I don't see a reason to change either one.
So before I'm of that opinion.
Does anybody want to change it? Okay, we will not change it, and we will move on. Down below, just another office, agency to office thing. So number 5 is submit official transcripts or a statement from the registrar. We usually get a statement from the registrar because they're starting to do stuff before they actually even get their transcripts. But that's why it's just adding in, just clarify it's one or the other.
We have had that issue.
This is James. So I would kind of advocate for it saying having completed an associate degree or higher.
What does, sorry, we're thinking, I'm opening up your statutes to see what it says.
I think they went back, remember, in legislation and changed it to like the A-step and stuff.
Because we're talking about RT, right? This is not,
Correct.
we're not on poli-sci yet. Okay.
I don't think they have an education requirement. Hold on.
We just have some folks that enter the profession with a bachelor's degree in respiratory, and it just seems like that would be okay to say associate degree or higher in respiratory.
It only says a 4-year high school and an office member. It actually doesn't require any education except for the high school diploma, and then it jumps right to the MBRC exam.
So this is Sylvie, I think, submit official transcript showing proof of having completed an associate's degree or higher in respiratory therapy, or a statement signed by the registrar, is that what you mean? An associate's degree
Sure.
or higher in respiratory therapy?
Sure.
That's not me, that's Maria.
April, will you switch screens, please? Nope.
Put me on the screen, please.
Okay, sorry, I'm learning this. We're in the process of switching over Maria to April. And so April is in the midst of trying to learn what Maria used to do.
This one's really just waiting to take the test.
There we go. Got it? Or Sammy, where are you at?
I am on page 5 of
Gotcha, okay.
Oh, am I in charge? There.
Yep, you're in charge now. Okay. Got that. Any other changes to that one, or is that one good?
Can I ask a question about that? This is Tony Garber.
Absolutely.
What does the AARC say? I know what our standard is in the state. We want an associate degree, or do we want the RRT? Just a question, because we changed it to RRT only a couple of years ago. So do we want to eliminate pathways, or do we want to accept what the AARC says as far as a definition of RRT?
AARC isn't the license.
Or do we want to look at that? Because I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's different.
So you're talking about, okay, so let me back up a minute so I can make sure I understand. So you're talking about, instead of saying about the degree, that you just show that you are...
That's for the application process, yes. They would just show.
No, but he's saying that why show us a degree if you have to have a degree? But we tell them that they're okay to take the test, don't we?
We don't have to. No, they can just take it. I'm not sure how he does that.
The way it works for a student who has graduated a program to take the MBRC exam, the program has to release them once their final transcripts have been verified and sent out by the registrar's office. And then they can sit for a board exam. They can't sit for a board exam until the program says they can.
So
Correct, and that is regulated by COARC. And then, so they have to be a COARC-approved program. Then once they graduate a program, and here's the roundabout reason I'm asking this is I know that the Air Force has a COARC-accredited program. I do not know that that is a degree program. So my question is, that's kind of a gray area where we would be potentially eliminating military people from working here. I know that you can take the military program and you can go get a finished associate degree, but it may not say respiratory therapy. It might say health and health education. It might say further health studies. It might be a transfer associate degree of other types of health studies, but it wouldn't be in respiratory therapy because they completed a program in respiratory therapy through a military organization, went on to get their degree. But are we eliminating those people? And if so, do we want to do that or do we not? That's the question I'm posing.
Okay, so before we move on, it says, okay, hold on. Exceptions to license requirements. Oh, it's an exception. It's talked about persons serving in the military, working in federal facilities. That's the exemption. Okay. I know that there's somewhere in here that we can account for education and experience while in the military.
It might be HLO.
I think it's an HLO. I just read.
But there's a whole rule in HLO rules about it too.
And the office has that too. So we would deal with those and we've had them before, but we deal with those on a one-on-one basis because sometimes they do have to have them, their military education evaluated to see if it's equivalent to, but they also have a program that does that for them. And then sometimes we can allow both the combination of education and experience in the military to count towards.
Yeah, it's...
Right, I know the Army has a program and they transitioned to an associate program more than 10 years ago, but I know the Air Force's program is fairly new. I don't know anything about it.
Gotcha.
So I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just trying to
Make
say
sure.
that it does exist. And,
Oh, absolutely.
and I want to make sure that,
Yeah.
So there's a
I want to
rule.
make sure that, I wouldn't accept them if they didn't meet a certain criteria that we set forth, but it is kind of one of those areas.
Right.
It sounds like there may be a process, this is before, that there may be a process in place, is what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
For those exceptions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
They have to submit a joint services transcript if they're applying for military training or experience to become licensed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the office has that covered for all the 16, and we would deal with those on a one-on-one and, and most likely would get a hold of one of you, especially one of you guys that work with a school, and say, hey, is this equivalent? How do we do this? And, so it wouldn't automatically prevent a military anything from getting a license but the way that your statute is written is that you have to. So in order to get a respiratory therapy license, 18 years of age, high school, and then it says, as approved by the office by rule, satisfies the requirements to be credentialed as a registered respiratory therapist by the National Board of Respiratory Care or successor organization, and passes an examination approved by you guys. So they have to have the equivalent to be registered respiratory therapist by NBRC. So what does NBRC require for a degree? Do they require at least associates or do they require higher?
Technically, I think it's about...
At this point, I couldn't tell you. I know I just recertified, but I don't know what the new requirements are. So I think we have it covered. I was just posing the question to make sure we covered it appropriately.
Gotcha, okay.
So I'm good.
Okay.
Where are we?
We are on your page 6. Well, actually page 7 now, because I don't see, that was the last issue on page 6.
Next one.
Oh, so on page 7, Sammy,
Yeah.
so you submit satisfactory as evidence of passing a board-approved examination listed under 331.710.10.1, and then you have in red or 4. And didn't we just delete or 4?
Yes, it's up here. I already deleted it.
Okay, so you got that out of there, okay.
Correct.
And then your B, which is on that same page, big B, down, 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet down from where you just were. There's another or 4.
Yeah, I got rid of them all.
Okay, good, okay. I just want to make sure we were not including that one exam still.
And I got rid of it in the examiner.
All right, so let's go. This is just like a lot of cleanup, so
Yeah, there really didn't have a lot of issues, that's why my report was so short. Probably one I should mention is one that Jacob brought up was the CCH credential. And basically, where's my report? Basically, what it came down to, and this one did have some, went back and forth. There was a couple people who supported it, a couple people who didn't, but what it came down to is it's an examination that's a built-on examination. An RT can take it, a nurse can take it, a paramedic can take it, a pharmacist can take it. So it wouldn't be somebody who has actual experience in sleep. It wouldn't have to be someone. One argument was that it's a very hard examination, so they'd have to study, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'd have to do practice. So the board recommended not accepting that.
The committee meeting.
Committee, yes, thank you.
Okay, so before we move on to that lovely topic.
It's not listed in here anywhere.
Okay. Under polysom indirect, which is the IS, we're on 331-710-0080. And this again is talking about the renewal. So this is for your indirect supervision. And number 4 talks about is valid for 1 year and may be renewed once. And we're totally fine with you keeping that as it is. But that's that same time, like we had the conversation before. Do you want to change that at all? Has Derek had any issues with this? That you know of, Sammy?
No.
So he hasn't had any applicants who have had this issue?
I asked him about both of them. Only one was BAP.
Okay.
That's how it
So no issues. Does anybody have any desire to change that?
This is Jacob. No.
Okay. All right, sorry, moving on. I'm just making sure you're addressing every little thing, and then, because that's basically what today's meeting is all about.
Right. And it's been a long time coming.
And it's been a long time coming.
I think the next ones are just office.
Those are cleanups.
Till we get to 710-0110.
So this is the training and work requirements for polysom.
There's a new 4, a new 5.
So of the rules, not your whole big document, but the rules on page 14, the bottom of that has a new number 4 and a new number 5.
So this question has come up in the policy section. A lot of people call and ask if they can do sleep home studies in order to get their training. And what the committee recommended that under the DS license, it needed to be in a clinical setting. And then once they moved into the IS temporary license, then they could do clinical and home settings.
This is before. That sounds... But did we discuss this previously?
No.
I mean, it sounds right, but I was...
Yeah, I think someone brought it up.
Okay.
You think maybe Jacob did. Can't remember now.
Yeah, because that's the way it should be.
Yeah, because when you're direct supervision, you need to be in-house where somebody can monitor you all the time. Once you've passed that and can now do indirect, you're still being supervised, but you can be a little bit more independent. So, does anybody have issues with that?
No.
Nice.
Yay.
Okay.
I removed the approved exam on the next page.
Yep, so next page is the exam. She's already removed number 4. Moving right along. A lot of office, agency to office, agency, office. Okay. So, rules, page 19. Number B is highlighted in yellow, Sammy.
This was, somebody brought this up and I looked into it a little bit, but I couldn't find any hard and fast information. All items that come in direct contact with clients' skin do not require disinfecting but must be clean. And I was unsure if that's accurate. I don't know a lot about your supply stuff, so is there ones that don't need to be disinfected that can just be cleaned and still used on a client after used on another client? Or should they be disposed of after every?
All right, which one are you on? I missed it.
Oh, no, you're fine. So we're under 331-718-0000, which is the standards of practice for respiratory care. And so we're on number 3, little b.
The committee recommended I look at the AARC and Joint Commission specific information, and I was not able to find anything specific to this. And I looked under EPA and CDC, and they talk about all kinds of stuff, but not anything really specific. But I do recall in the original making of this rule that there were some things that could be cleaned.
Well, stethoscopes are one of those things that can be cleaned without being disinfected.
Okay. I guess that answers that.
Usually we clean them with, an alcohol wipe or something.
It's true, but not they don't always get cleaned in between patients, and they don't always, and it isn't always, say, a virucidal something or other, or a bacterial, against Pseudomonas, or, these kind of things. So it just depends on other factors, I would say.
Which what goes in line with E. Does anybody have any issues with how E is written? Which is the same subject.
No.
Okay, so we'll leave B alone. And they say they have no issues with E on how you re-verbalized it.
Excellent. Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Okay, that's a you thing where you need to get their website, correct?
Yes, I reached out, I just haven't received an answer back. They actually don't have a date on that document, and I've had that's why it's listed that way now, because they don't have a date, and I've reached out to them multiple times.
Their ethics or non-document.
I have the ethics date, I don't have the standards of practice date.
The BRPT standards of conduct as a professional standards model.
Yeah,
It needs to have a date.
The website's there that goes to it, but they just don't publish a date. I don't know why.
Okay. So Sammy will finish doing that. That's more of a getting the link into the web or the rules. So we're on at next page after that. So G says masks must be disinfected before each use on a client with high-level disinfectant used to manufacturer's instructions. Anybody have issues with her changes to G?
What page is that?
Page 21, the rules, page 21 of the rules.
No, it's good.
Okay.
I just took out some of the fluff.
Okay, so let's get to continuing education.
My thoughts exactly.
So I've had to deal with this, and I'll explain some things, but you're welcome to ask. So one of the things that occurred is that legislators passed a bill that talks about certain professions have to do certain types of continuing education, which is cultural competency. You're one of them. The way the bill was written and the way your statutes are written do not align. So we're going to go through your continuing education, and I'm going to kind of explain to you why we wrote things a certain way, because it's not normal, because the two statutes don't nicely commingle. So If you get onto your continuing education, the second page of that, which is page 23 of your rules, except for Tony, who I do believe is the reading in black and white. So all of 6 and 7 is new, and those are in red. And I can kind of go through those if any of them don't make sense. But this is where, so I made a policy call for here at the office, because you guys are not the only board that has to do this. That we're instead of trying to commingle all the rules about continuing education, we're going to break the cultural competency into their own very specific sections. Because there's outs, there's people who don't have to take it. And you only have to take it every other year you renew. So that's why 6 and 7 are the way that they're written. And then we try to just leave your other stuff alone. And so your continuing education will not change in the number of hours that you must maintain. However, one of those hours every other year must be in cultural competency. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the new stuff?
Yeah, this is Jim. I do.
Yep.
So one sentence there says the board must maintain a current list of cultural competency skills recognized in rule by the Oregon Health Authority. So, I mean, the hospital that I work at, every year we have to do cultural competencies, and it would be really nice if that was, does every recognize, now does the board have to list Asante's cultural competency and health, go ahead.
Okay, so I think that, where's the bill? I think that verbiage might be wrong, Sammy.
Is Asante...
Because, so he's reading more towards the end of item number 7. Where's the bill? Is the bill in here?
Yeah.
There it is.
The board shall accept CCE that is not obtained from the health authority's approved list to the extent the board determines that the CCE...
Yeah, but your last sentence where it says the board must maintain a current list of cultural competency skills recognized by the Oregon Health Authority. No, they do not have to do that.
Well, that's what Heather had. I will get rid of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. To the extent the board determines the CCE meets the skills requirements. So, because the board shall, so I'm reading out, so in your, not that you need to scroll to it, but I have the copy of the bills in there. So what you have to do, so the board shall encourage, so you have to encourage people to do the classes, the continuing education that is approved by the Oregon Health Authority, but we're not required to. So that's where it says the board encourages completion of records from the approved list promulgated by the Oregon Health Authority. And we'll put a link on your guys' website that will go directly to that. So that's where it says available on the board's website. And the board shall also accept CEs that is not obtained from the Oregon Health Authority's approval list to the extent that the board determines it meets the requirements. Yeah, see, I think that last sentence just needs to be gone.
Okay.
Because there's nowhere in the bill that says the board must maintain a current list of cultural competency skills recognized by the board by rule of the Oregon Health Authority. That's...
Oh yeah, I didn't see it. I don't know why she had that in there.
And we're taking it down.
Taking her out.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to delete that last sentence. Any other questions, comments, concerns on this new stuff?
Nope.
Okay.
Some number errors.
It's funny how the bill says, oh, you have to do all this stuff, but you don't have to do it if this and that and this and that. And it's encouraged to, I mean, it's just like, they're not strong words. It's like, if you would have just left it alone, most people take cultural competency in health professions anyways, but this kind of mandates it, I guess.
Can I ask one quick question?
Absolutely.
I know right now if a facility is going to have some sort of continuing education, we can send it up to get approved. will it be the same thing? Will Asante need to get specific approvals for their, just Asante as an example, or their cultural competency, or just doing a facility-based one will be recommended? I guess maybe it'll depend on if it meets the skill requirements, or I just didn't know if we have to get approval through the Oregon Health Authority for that one CE.
Well, typically, so either the class would have to be approved by them, or it would have to meet their requirements for said class.
Okay.
So one would assume that it'd be easiest if you get it approved. For one, they're very quick at approving, and they have a list on their website of all the classes that they have approved.
I'll add them with this going back.
So, for one, this isn't new, like we talked about already. Most hospitals require this stuff anyways, and most people who work in medical professions already are doing this. So a lot of these classes have already been approved because they're teaching them to not just your profession, but a bunch of different types of professions.
Right, yeah, I guess my concern was that someone did it through their facility, and then they randomly got audited, and that one was not a approved cultural competency, assuming that it was. That was just my kind of question.
Right, and so what we would do, because our office is the one that would do the audits, and so what we would do is we would look at health authority stuff and just say, hey, would this class have met your qualifications? And they look at it and go, oh yeah, it would have, then we would move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions about this new cultural competency stuff? All right, so let's go, moving on to continuing education for Poli-Som. Kind of the same thing. Yeah. Will you get that last sentence out of 6 again? Got it.
Already get it. You have some numbering crisis, which I'll figure out.
Okay. Oh, the renumbering, yeah.
5 and 5.
Yeah, too many 5s in there, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get it all cleaned up.
Happened. This was not an easy piece to do.
Okay, so now, we're almost done, you guys. Okay, so we are on page 20, page 27, not packet 27. This is where we have added in a whole nother division so that Bob can continue moving forward with investigations and complaints that are related, very specific, without having to bring you guys into the game. So this is talking about the people who are mandatory reporters. As you guys know, you guys are all licensees in this group are mandatory reporters for felony arrest or conviction and misdemeanor convictions. And then this will put in the verbiage so that Bob can just move forward with issuing a civil penalty, and the public knows very clear, here's how much it's going to cost me if I fail to report.
This is Hulse. I'm in favor of approving this.
Nice. Do we have any wordsmithing we need to do? Has everybody had a chance to read it? Because this is a whole brand new section.
Seems pretty straightforward in reference, so.
Okay, hold on. Because I thought... So number 1 says for failure to report a misdemeanor or felony conviction. I thought that if misdemeanor conviction was $250.
Yeah.
You guys kind of went back and forth between 500 and 250. I wasn't sure.
250.
It's $250. So let's get this to $250.
Okay.
And then probably
And this-
500 and
500?
750.
So hold on.
Okay. And there's no other rules like this that I could find. We don't have a rule like this.
So no, you're fine. We're creating something new. There's not very many mandatory reporters. So let's do... So I think that what we have done in the past, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's been a $250 civil penalty for a misdemeanor conviction and a felony arrest. And then it's been a $500 civil penalty for a felony conviction.
So you
Am I correct?
Read
or
the
no?
rules.
I don't recall. I know I'm not on the stand, but I don't.
Like I said, there's no other rules, and I would have to.
Oh, you're fine. No, we can sit here and hash it out because they need to agree to it. So there's 3 different violations, you guys. One is failure to do report. These are all about reporting. A failure to report a misdemeanor conviction, a felony arrest, and a felony conviction. The dollar amounts for the misdemeanor in the past has been $250, so that's a $250 for a misdemeanor conviction, and a $500 for a felony conviction. What do you guys want a felony arrest?
Got it. I'm with you. I'm gonna have to check these numbers again.
Do you guys feel comfortable with leaving the failure to report a felony arrest at $250, or do you want that at $500?
I think the arrest is... Sorry.
Sorry.
Tony, I agree with the 250 for the misdemeanor and the felony arrest.
And then a felony conviction, $500. Jacob, does that sound good to you?
That sounds fine.
So the third offense, 1,000, okay.
And we haven't got that for you. And then James, do you feel comfortable with both a misdemeanor conviction and a felony arrest at $250? This is what we're all going to talk about. And then a felony conviction will be at $500.
Sure, yes.
Okay, Michael, are you good with that?
Yeah.
And Tony? Tony, you might be on mute. You good? Okay. Sarah, are you good with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And Mark, do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. And how about you, Pablo? Pablo, you may have your phone on mute. Or you don't want to answer. Okay. So everybody's comfortable with a misdemeanor conviction, a felony arrest at $250 for first offense, the felony conviction for $500 first offense. And you got both those separated out now, right? Yep. Okay, so we'll go from $250 for first offense to $500 for second offense to $1,000 for third offense, and then the fourth one the board's going to have to decide. That's how it typically works. And then for the failure to report the felony conviction, which, oh man, if you have a felony conviction and didn't report, that's a biggie. So that one will go $500, $750, no, see that's not, what do you want to do, $500, $1,000, $1,500? You guys need to pick numbers.
Totally guessing on this.
Yeah, being a conviction, I would go with what you said. So it'll be 500, 1,000, 1,500.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, especially after the first time you got cited. If you didn't tell us this for the second time, then you really, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
So 500, 1,000, 1,500.
Got it.
Okay, so we now have that broken apart into 3.
Section.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to have, this is LaFleur, I'm going to have to bow out. I've got patients.
You're fine. We still have quorum.
Yeah. Excellent.
Is there?
So, y'all have a nice day and talk to you later.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Right. It is 11:01 and Mike LaFleur had to log off. Okay. And then last page is fees. And we'll get into more discussion about this, but these are going to change, but not until probably January 1 of 22. I'll get into more detail of that later. But this again is just cleanup about the office. And that's about it. Anything in the rules that anybody wants to talk about that we went too fast or we didn't discuss or that you want to bring up that we didn't change, anything like that?
Bob wants us to add in license, operating license.
Ooh.
No license, inactive.
Gotcha. So let's go back to the civil penalty stuff that we just talked about the misdemeanor conviction, felony conviction, blah, blah, blah. So Bob would like us to write into rule a rule about operating with an inactive license, and then the other one operating without ever having a license. So operating with an inactive license, you had a license up until August 31st. On September 1st, you were working, and your license is now inactive. And that can be whether it's at, I don't think we would ever cite somebody for working at 12:01 when they got shift started, ended at 2, but you know what I mean. So it would be working with an inactive license up to, you can be inactive, what, for 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another one, if you guys can come to an agreement that we can put in rule, and then Bob would be able to just cite those, plus people would know what the civil penalty would be for operating with an inactive license. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Did you say what we typically have done in the past?
We haven't had any that I can recall where they were inactive.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, because usually people are, for one, their employer is watching and monitoring, because the insurance requires you to be actively licensed. So usually your employer is on that before, and we don't have this happen very often. And we also don't get a lot of complaints on your guys' licensees compared to how many you have. But it just makes it easier, since we're already creating the civil penalties section, that it's just easier. And you can pick the dollar amount, whether it's $250, just like you do about the other one about the not reporting the arrest or felony. You may think it's more important to, for one, I would make the civil penalty for not ever having a license and practicing a hell of a lot higher than having had a license and allowing it to go inactive, because they're two different things. But you guys get to pick the amount that you want.
Cosmetology does 1,000, 2,500, and 5,000 for not having one.
For not ever having one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so cosmetology, which is obviously another one of our boards, completely different, and it's obviously not a medical profession, but theirs is $1,000 for practicing without ever having a license for first offense.
Or one that's expired over 3 years.
We haven't had any.
But obviously with cosmetology, we have that problem a little bit more often than we do with you guys.
Yeah, we haven't had any respiratory, because you typically can't even get it at a hospital.
You can't get a job without having a license.
You can't even.
But we've had
the inactive stuff.
We've had inactive, and then we've also had polysoms that were working inappropriately without a license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and polysom is the one that we have more issues about, the not having a license and doing actually polysomnography without a license.
Tony, can we put a time frame on those? Can we say less than 24 hours? So if you finish the shift, we fine you $50 or $100, and if it was less than 30 days, so you went to work one day and everyone missed it and you were outside your license, and it's $250, and it's beyond 30 days, and it's $500.
No.
I agree with, definitely, without a license, we bump that up.
Right, and so the way that the law is written is you are either active or inactive. There is no timeline. It's at 12:01 a.m. That's what I said, like the September 9th. We, as an office, would not take a case and cite you because your shift started at 8 o'clock that night and then ended at 8 o'clock the next morning, and your license became inactive during your shift. We would not cite them for that. We would do a case-by-case basis. But there is no differentiating. At 12:01 a.m., that license becomes inactive, and you legally are not to be practicing regardless. So that you can't say, well, you can be inactive up to so much time, because as soon as your license is inactive, it's illegal for you to be working. Does that make sense?
Correct.
So,
yeah, that makes sense. That works for me. I was just thinking, it's one thing to have bad situations happen in your home and you just forget.
Right.
And you forget the license for a couple of weeks, and then, oh, by the way, your ex-wife sends you the paperwork because you forgot it was your license month or something like that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm just not going to do it.
Right. And Bob, just so you guys know too, in reality, if somebody gets a notice, then they're say for instance you guys pick $250. And they get a notice for $250 and they're like, hey, I didn't even know, here's my circumstances, they plead their case with Bob. Bob has the authority to work with them on that civil penalty. So that's all part of the negotiations and the settlement after the fact. So remember, they're getting a notice of intent. So they still have rights to appeal and to appeal their case, per se. And so just because you say this is what the civil penalty is, doesn't mean that Bob can't lower it, he can't make it any higher, but he can lower that based on that individual in their specific case, if he feels that it's appropriate.
Okay. Then I say 250 for practicing without a license, and 1,000 or with expired, and 1,000 first time without.
Okay. So the word's inactive. So you can be inactive up to 3 years. After 3 years, then you're expired and you must reapply. So does everybody feel comfortable? And we can keep having this conversation. Tony and I keep having it, but everybody can have it. Do 250. Go ahead.
Are you saying 3 years consecutive inactive? Because that seems like a long time to me.
I know, isn't it? Your license can be inactive up to 3 years. After 3 years, it is expired. These are legal definitions that are in statute. Doesn't mean that you can be practicing, because legally you cannot practice with a license that is not active. However, your license can be inactive. So say you take, I don't know, 2 years off to have a baby and raise a child. Your license, you can then reactivate your license later, or you can reapply, but you still can't be practicing.
Okay, that's clarified.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to the dollar amount. So $250 for practicing with an inactive license, and then for the first offense. And then first offense for practicing with never having a license or an expired license. So an expired license is that one that's been inactive for more than 3 years. Either one of those two should be $1,000 for the first offense, because you are practicing without having any license and you should have had one, correct?
Correct.
Anybody not feel comfortable with that? You guys are good, man. Is there any other ones that you would like them to address, Bob?
And these can't because they're right in front of me.
I know, it'll make it. So this will also, don't talk about it, but this will also help address some of the cases that we talked about in the executive session. Because those will be able to move forward. Well, these rules don't go into effect until January.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But, this happened in 17, so we couldn't.
Right. Okay, but it will help with that step. Hopefully move that along. All right, anything else with the rules? Anyone?
This is Tony.
Yeah.
I had a question. I was thinking about something on page 19, and we were talking about the disinfecting of the items that come in direct contact with patient skin.
Yep.
I was really concerned about one thing, and then I completely shift the thought process. I believe that's all in the CMS conditions of participation. I think it's specific enough to talk about how you have to do all of those things, so maybe we want to mimic their language. My biggest concern when we started talking about that, I see in my head, I see a sleep lab cleaning masks and putting them on the next patient, and then cleaning a mask and on the next patient, and so on. That kind of concerned me a little bit. Or maybe at least address all non-single patient, single patient use disposable items, or I don't know how we want to, I don't know if we want to get into that, but I just think that CMS might cover that better than us.
Okay, so you're on page 19 of the rules. That is very specific to respiratory care. Polysomnography has its own set on page 20.
Okay, well, I think both of those should probably default most likely to CMS. So the participation, the conditions of participation for CMS. That's kind of my thought.
You can look it up, but does everybody follow those requirements? I have no idea.
But yeah, they should, at a minimum, should be following the manufacturer's requirements, and if they say to sterilize or dispose.
Yeah, so this is Sylvie, so we always put in there about must follow manufacturer's instructions. So the instant you are cleaning something that the manufacturer says you need to do it A, B, and C, and you do it F and G, you're not following the manufacturer's instructions. So is there instructions on how to clean and sanitize masks when it comes to polysom?
Yeah, you throw it away.
Okay, so.
Well, and if that's what the manufacturer's instructions say, that it's a single use, you throw it away and get a new one, then they'll be fine. It's more about the cleaning stuff.
Yeah. I don't know, it may be immaterial. I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking, I just don't like the thoughts that I get when I think about that.
So, and just this is, go ahead.
So this is Jim Holt. I need to go see my patients. If you still have a quorum.
We still have a quorum, you're golden.
Okay, thanks.
No problem, have a good day. So this is a reminder that we today are doing proposed rules. You'll still have the comment period where the public can comment. So more people will have an opportunity to review this stuff. And so you could also, again, think between now and then, which is December 9th, about these rules, and then we could also talk about them again if that's something that you want to talk about, but we're not finalizing 100% the rules today. Remember, that's what you're going to do in December.
Perfect, that sounds good.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Okay.
I can also add some of it into the proposed notice, some of these questions that they have.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. So any other questions, comments, concerns on the rules before we move on? Okay. So next in your packet is what's called a fiscal impact requirement. So we have to answer these questions. Doesn't mean the answer is going to be long or detailed, but we have to answer every single question. So think about the changes that we have made. Obviously, anywhere when it says office to or agency to office is not that big of a deal. And we actually did not add in. We did not add in that new exam. So the only major changes that we did are what, Sammy?
Well, the first one would be, the first one would be the cultural competency, if that is a cost.
Right.
We didn't add in the RST exam, so that's nothing.
Nope.
We didn't do the CCHS, so that's nothing. We didn't allow for an extra year, like temporary.
Yeah, you guys didn't
So
do
a lot of
much.
the stuff we didn't do, and then I can write up a simple comments on, or stuff on civil penalties. It kind of is what it is.
Well, the civil penalties, but they're all avoidable.
Right.
Those are all avoidable costs.
I mean, other than that, I don't know if there's anything.
I think Sammy can answer this fiscal impact requirement statement all herself, because you guys didn't make changes that weren't like the cultural competency was obvious. You had to do that because that's a bill. And the reason we're trying to do this, just so you know, it doesn't go into effect until July 1 of 21, but we want to get it in place now so that people know it's coming. So in your rules, it'll show that this goes into effect for anybody renewing after July 1 of 21. But we're trying to get the word out there now so that when somebody who goes to renew in July isn't like caught off guard that they didn't do this 1 hour. So that's why we're trying to get that shoved in there. But I think Sammy can answer this fiscal impact requirement statement because that's all legislatively mandated. The big section about the civil penalties is all avoidable as long as you abide by the rules and regulations. So I think we can take care of that in-house.
Get behind all that.
Okay. Next in your packet is just the information that committee got together on looking at the different pathways, and I'm assuming you've all reviewed that. There's no decisions that you needed to make on that. That was just more of them putting the information together in a nice side-by-side so that it's easy to compare.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, and they didn't really need it, so.
And you didn't really need it because you didn't move forward with that
But it
exam.
was helpful for the committee to have everything there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty, so yeah, I did.
And it was pretty. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns on rules at all? Because we're going to move forward if you don't.
Nope.
Okay, so then what I need is for, I don't know whom wants to do it, but somebody needs to make a motion to adopt the proposed rules and the rule schedule. And I would say the proposed rules as amended today and the rule schedule.
So this is Tony. I make a motion to adopt the proposed rules as amended today, and move forward with the agenda.
And the rule schedule.
Sarah, and I second it.
Okay, we got a call. Sorry, step out to the car real quick.
That's your fine.
Well, give me just 1 second. I got hungry. Back in my car. I need to get back in the office and take a call.
Do you want me to do the roll call, Jacob?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll do a roll call, indicate with yay or nay on adopting the proposed rules as amended today and the rule schedule. Jacob.
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
And Pablo. Pablo, are you still on the phone?
Is this public?
Oh, I thought we'd lost James and Mike. Pablo, do you have your phone on mute, or did we actually lose you? Well, we must have lost Pablo. Okay, so we still have
Do we have quorum with public?
1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we do. So Jacob, Tony, Sarah, and Mark. That's 4, because you're a board of 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's quorum. So Jacob, Tony, Sarah, and Mark, none of you can get off the phone, otherwise we have to stop the meeting. But we're almost done. So the rest of the meeting should go pretty quick.
That's
Okay.
why I got the snack, so we're good.
Yes, now you got your snack. Okay, so let's move on. Next one is chair and vice chair. So currently Jacob is chair and James is vice chair. Both Jacob and James do not term out anytime soon. You do not have to change who's chair and vice chair. You do have to vote on chair and vice chair. So you guys can have that discussion. You can either keep it the same, change it up, whatever you want to do, but you do have to vote.
I'm good with the way it is.
Was that Tony?
That's Tony.
So Tony, why don't you make a motion to say such?
This is Tony. I make a motion to keep the chair and vice chair as is.
Mark Easby, I second that.
Okay, well, we have, I'll call roll. So we have a motion to keep the chair and the vice chair as it is. Jacob Espinosa, aye. And James Halsey is not here. Mike LaFleur is not here. Tony Garber? Aye. Sarah Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mark Easby? Aye. And Pablo Herrera Fuentes, we're not sure if he's still on.
Yeah, he may have
Okay.
stepped out or something.
Okay, motion has passed to keep the chair and vice chair as it is.
Perfect. Next one is meeting dates for 2021. So we picked March 19th and October 8th. These are full board meetings that will be such as today, where you have all the reports and all the voting and all that good stuff. Does not mean that we don't have the potential of scheduling something in there that is very specific, whether it's related to a case or anything else that may come up, but these are two that we want to get on the calendar and get on the calendar now.
You said March 19th and October what?
8th.
8th.
And I have I have next year's calendar in front of me if you guys need to change those dates.
Kidding, we have COVID. I don't have anything scheduled that far out.
We do. We have the whole year booked out.
We already got our 2021 calendars.
We can all have
This
one
is Jacob.
all right? So,
Yeah. What, Jacob?
I'm good with those dates.
If nobody has any issues with those dates, and it doesn't mean that we can't also move it later if something does come up, but if nobody has any issues with those dates other than Jacob, somebody could make a motion to approve those dates.
This is Sarah. I make a motion to approve the date for the 2021
Tony.
calendar.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the dates for 2021. We'll now call roll. Jacob Espinosa, aye. Tony Garber,
Aye.
Sarah Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Mark Easy.
Aye.
Okay, motion to approve the dates for 2021 has passed.
Perfect. This is Sylvie again. Let's go through all the internal stuff. So we're on item number 7, under reports, director's report. So I kind of talked about this a little bit before, but we meaning the whole state of Oregon, not just our office, has been on a hiring freeze. And so of the 34 positions that we currently have, 7 of them are currently vacant, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when it comes to only having 34 people, that is a lot. And so we're getting way behind on certain things. We finally got them to approve this week, filling 2 frontline positions. We currently have, and we're still currently open to the public. We're open by appointment only. So your appointments are for exams and examinations only. Everything else you must do either through the mail or online due to the COVID issues. So we have a lot more paperwork coming in because we have less people coming in, but we don't have people to process the mail because they're either out, because you got to remember too, we also allow for people to be home with their children if they have school-age children and do not have daycare. So we have one individual who's working the front line who actually literally is working from home. So she answers the emails and does a bunch of paperwork stuff. And so we're just extremely short-staffed here in the office. A lot of people were in the state office, or the whole state as a whole, has encouraged almost everybody to work from home if they can. Buildings are being shut down due to obviously everything going on. So it's a whole new world that we're in. It's really hard for us we didn't have board meetings for a while because it's just so hard. So and then we couldn't not have board meetings because you guys need to do stuff. So then we had to figure out this whole 2-phone thing. And then we finally got approved to have MS Teams, which is a Microsoft product, but it's similar to Zoom. So we finally got approval for that. However, in order to do that, we also need to purchase a bunch of cameras. And anytime you need to purchase any IT stuff, there's a ginormous process to go through to get said cameras, or any IT related stuff. So we're working really hard to try to do virtual board meetings. So eventually we'll be able to see each other, but we here at the office have to start the software in order to be able to invite you to so that if you are sitting at a computer that has a camera, you'll be able to see us and we can see you. So we're hoping to get to that, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll see. So those are some of the major things that are going on with the office. And I kind of covered the COVID-19 stuff, but I got a lot more detailed stuff about that, about things that we did, because obviously respiratory therapy is very highly involved in COVID-19. So we'll get into a lot more details of that when we get down to some of the rules that we changed internally. But let's go through the licensing and statistics real quick. So, in your packets, there is the licenses issued statistics. You'll see that there's a new column in there, and it says PRV COVID. So one of the things that we did is we quickly wrote a rule to allow for individuals who were either coming from out of state, needed to come here, or people who were retired and had a license with us at some point were allowed to reactivate or get a license very quickly. So those are the people, we had 5 people apply for that unique situation. Next slide just shows your long-term license trend, which is very steady. Doesn't seem to change much at all. And that's it for respiratory therapists. Next slide shows those same licensees, again, broken out by age and gender. And I've said this before, but people do not have to identify as either male or female. They can leave it blank, put in whatever they want, which is why there's 3 instead of just male and female. The next slide shows polysons, which again, pretty steady. And that's for the long-term trend. If I'm going too fast, just ask me questions, or if you have any questions, let me know. Next slide shows the active licensees broken out by age and gender. And then the next slide shows all that same information on one big chart. And then just as of the day of the report, so this is as of October 1st. It shows how many active licenses there are for each of the different categories. Next slide shows the financials. So you can see there that over the years, the board has been losing money. And so our model, so I'm going to kind of go into the next policy report, which talks about the 2021 legislation and this chart right here. So the long-term trend, looking at you guys are a very stable board. You do not have an increase in licensing volume at all. Now that we've been underneath the public health long enough and everything is stabilized in that, we know that your current fees are not enough to sustain the board. Our model allows for some of our boards to operate in the negative. Obviously that is not how you want to stay operating in the negative. So one of the policy, they call them a policy option package. So one of the things that we are requesting as part of our requested budget, which has to go to the governor's office, and the governor's office gets to put their input in it, then it goes to the legislation, and then it gets passed by the legislation. But in that is a request to increase your licensing fees to be able to cover the cost of you guys as a board and as a whole group operating in the office. So your fees will go up, but they will not go up as long as everything gets passed. They will not go up until January 1 of 22. So it takes a long process. So in January 1 of 22, and we're going to do outreach to everybody. So Sammy's been working on a draft communication that will go out to all licensees, the associations. We had to come up with a whole big old list of stakeholders that would be interested in our policy package. So we have that whole list. We're working on drafting up the communication, and that will go out. It'll kind of talk about the fact that, you know, your fees were set when we were an independent agency, which was a long time ago. And the fees have not changed since. And so now that we are underneath the Oregon Health Authority and a part of public health, the cost of being a part of a big agency like that, your fees currently are not enough to sustain that. So that all that communication will come out. So obviously you guys will end up getting a copy of that, because it's going to go out to all licensees, all interested parties, and then everybody who's on our stakeholders list. So any questions on that?
Do we know or have a guesstimate of what the license fee is going to be?
Yes. So it'll go, currently you pay $50 a year, it'll go to $100 a year. It's doubling.
I It was $100 a year not that long ago.
Correct. Well, when we changed it, because remember, because last time we changed it, we were an independent agency, because it was $100 then, and you guys were bringing in too much money, but that was under the model of us being independent. And so we dropped them down into half, and now we're going back to what it was before, because the model's different now.
Yeah, we're going back to what license was about 10 years ago.
Right. And you guys are not, just so you know, not that makes it help it at all, but you're not the only board that's having to have a policy package to increase fees.
Yeah, at least it's a little bit out, because I know with COVID, a lot of the hospitals have froze any type of pay increase. So I know it might be a hard pill for RTs to swallow, or polysomnography, but I guess part of the process.
Yeah, and like I said, the fees at the earliest, they cannot go into effect until January 1 of 22. So they're not going to go increase anytime soon. But that communication is going to go out soon, and that's where, and people will have probably the same comments. But that communication also states when the fee goes into effect. So, and this process started, we started this whole entire process, the policy option package thing, prior to COVID ever starting. At least prior to me being aware of COVID starting. All right. Any other questions on that? All right. Let's move on to Bob's regulatory report real quick, and then I'll talk some more about other things that we've done for COVID.
This is Bob Bothwell for the record. 2017-2019 biennium, we received a total of 84 complaints. We have 11 complaints that remain open, 73 of them are closed, and currently we've received 9 complaints. 6 of those are open, 3 are closed. And that's all I've got, unless somebody has any questions.
Okay, so let's go back to COVID. There in your packet, there should be some rules that we just cut and pasted the rules into your document, because they're actually in the office's rules. So several of these rules pertain to all of our boards and programs that are underneath of us. So the first one is very specific to you guys, though, talking about, and I kind of mentioned this before, about respiratory therapists who are inactive or expired, and they're allowed to get a provisional to help because the declared emergency. The only way they would not have been able to get a license with us is if they had any outstanding or unresolved disciplinary action. So in those stats, there was, I do believe, 5 people that applied for the provisional license. Mm-hmm. And I do believe one of them, because it's easy when there's only 5, one of them, she got offered a full-time job, so she got her old license reactivated, everything back up to speed. And then a couple of them had them extended out through the end of the year, so through December 31st.
And the rest never.
And the rest never, because they were allowed to extend, so I think that they may have just been here for temporary. Because when we wrote this rule, it was right in the beginning, and so obviously we didn't know everything was going to be shut down for as long as it is. So we've been working with them, if they're going to stay and continue working in Oregon, of extending their, I think at first it was only went out like 90 days, I think.
Yeah, but it said could go through to the end of the emergency.
Right, yeah. So, but we've been trying to deal with, again, there's only 5 of them, but we've been working with them and helping, make sure that they're licensed and they can continue working. The next one, and this rule will change. We're in the process of filing it right now. It's currently out for public comment. But the next one basically, and it will be a lot more detailed than this one, but this one talks about how you need to be in compliance with the executive orders and the guidance. So if you do not follow the governor's executive orders or public health's guidance, then we can cite you for unprofessional conduct. And so that's what this rule is about. Again, that goes to all 16 of our boards and programs. And so, as you know, there are people out in the professions, not yours, but out in Oregon, who do not necessarily believe that the governor has the authority to tell people they can and can't do things. So it's to help add to that, to say, this is unprofessional conduct if you have a license with us, to not be following these guidelines. And then if you were paid attention, so cosmetology was one of the big ones that got to be in part of phase 1. That was because I got to be on the committee with the governor's office for all the personal services guidelines, to create personal services guidelines so that they were able to open back up as part of phase 1. So, and that group for us is very, very large. And so that group was the one that needed this rule the most. However, we wrote it for all of our licensees. Any questions? Oh, you guys are good. All right, next rule. So, we wanted to waive the late fee for anybody who was active on the date of the declared emergency. So anybody whose license became inactive as of the end of March of 2020, because she did declare the emergency on the 8th. So anybody who was active on that day, if they renewed late, we wanted to waive the late fee. Well, we couldn't, because the law says that we must require you pay a late fee. So the best I could do was move it down to $1. So if you were active on that day of March 31st, and you are late, but mind you, you had to be active then, so somebody who wasn't active in January does not get the $1 late fee. Only those people, and that's for all of our board, not just respiratory therapy. Any questions? God, you guys are easy peasy.
No.
All right, next rule. So here's another thing we did. So continuing education. So we put in, this is again as an office rule, anybody during COVID-19 that has to have, not all of our boards have to have continuing education, but those that do, we gave an out knowing that there's going to be no seminars, no classes, well, there hardly any seminars, classes, any in-person kind of trainings. So this allows for individuals to do their CEs either online, virtual, remote, also to be able to use what you're currently doing if it pertains to your profession as experience, the COVID-19, and that counting as continuing education. So that gives a little bit of out. You guys, and also environmental health is obviously two of our boards that are hugely involved with COVID-19. So, but this again goes to all of our boards. And these are all things I said that we did immediately. So next one is about allowing for individuals from out of state. Knowing respiratory therapy was going to be a huge involvement in this. We instantly got this, so this is March 13th, so that was 5 days after she declared the emergency. We sent out information about allowing RTs from out of state to come to Oregon real quick. So that's what this copy of this letter is, again, just for your information, all the things that we did right in the beginning. Oh, Bob's regulatory reports after that. I made him go at the wrong time. Whoops.
I just do unfold. I'm a soldier.
Right. Any questions on the umpteen million words I just said?
No.
All right.
How do you document the viewing of films, videos, slides?
I have some of the things, but I don't think everyone knows.
Right. So out on our website is a form for self-study. And so you can just print that off, you fill it out, like on this date, this is what I did from this time to this time, here's the subject it covers. And then you fill it out yourself and you put it in your file. It's for if you get audited, you just have to have documentation of what you did. So if you watched did a self-study of watching a video, you just need to write down the date, the time, what it was, what you watched, what did it cover, and how does that address your profession. But we have a form if you need to use one.
Now you tell us, because I can't tell you how many podcasts I watched out of New York when they were going through this in the beginning, and they were the hot spot.
Well, all you have to do is just like a little journal off to the side that you watch. For one, we're going to know that it's a little case by case, and we kind of know that respiratory therapy is a little busy right now.
Yeah, it was crazy. We, as a department, and even with our medical director, watched all kinds of crazy stuff because we were trying to figure out how do you treat this nonsense? Because it's not like anything we've ever done before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's different now. Now we got a pretty good handle on it, I think.
Good. Good to hear. Okay, so let's stay on the agenda and then we can get you guys going. So we're on item number 8, which is public and interested parties feedback. However, there's no public or interested parties feedback people on the phone. So we'll move on to other board business. So is there anything else anybody wants to talk about?
This is one thing real quick. I talked to you guys last spring when COVID happened about students and hospitals refusing to take students for clinical.
Okay, so somebody's phone is giving a ton of static. I don't know if somebody's moving around or if you're outside, but... Okay, so...
Maybe.
Sorry, sir. Go ahead. You said something about school or what?
Well, when COVID happened, many of the hospitals refused to take students for clinical. And so I had spoke with, I had someone in your office I spoke with about potentially creating some sort of, if needed, temporary license for students to practice.
Students are exempt.
Anyway,
Students are exempt.
something like that happen again this winter.
So yeah, somebody's... Can somebody, everybody else mute their phone? I'm having a really hard time hearing Sarah. So somebody, I can hear somebody talking to somebody.
Might be, it sounds like a radio, maybe.
I know. So Sarah, you're talking.
It's picking up your voice static.
So Sarah, you're talking about students going in and having a hard time with their getting their like clinical stuff?
Correct. So last spring, winter, when all this happened, hospitals were refusing to take students for clinicals, and we ended up having one hospital take all of our students so they could graduate on time. So I just wanted to put it out there in case we see that happen again this winter. It might be something that needs to be addressed, where that we are kind of ensuring we are continuing to get our students the hands-on education when hospitals are saying, well, we don't want students, creating some sort of temporary license or something. I just wanted to kind of bring it to light because it was a little bit hectic there for a couple months or a month or so that respiratory therapists might not be getting out of the program on time when there was a need to have them in the hospital.
Right. And
that was all.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. For one, students are exempt from licensure because they're still in their program, so we wouldn't need to give them a license. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, for those of you who've been doing this, now that people know a little bit more about COVID-19, I don't think that will necessarily be an issue. I think in the beginning, people were so unsure of how things were, like Tony said, how this goes and how it goes from person to person and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But that's more of an outreach with the hospitals because obviously they're students still and we don't license or regulate them yet.
Yeah.
So Sylvia, I have go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say our thought was, because Oregon Tech specifically, it's a bachelor's degree, so our students technically have met an associate degree, so that was kind of the gray area that had been discussed.
Yeah. And we can bring it up again if we need to start. I mean, but like I said, as long as they're students, they're still exempt from having a license. So that's one of the exemptions. So they don't have to have a license. But if there's a point where they need some sort of maybe indirect supervision license or direct supervision license because they're not, but they're still doing their school because don't they have to have the clinical hours in order to graduate school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the issue. Our program specifically at Oregon Tech is over 1,000 clinical hours, and they were within a half to 3/4 of those hours. And then when it said when the hospital said no students were allowed, then it was kind of hard to finish the second half of those clinical hours.
Yeah.
So,
So this is Tony. I have a little insight on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Because we did shut down to students, and it was definitely not because we didn't want the help or couldn't figure out how to use them. That was actually a side conversation, and we were trying to figure out how to use them. But the bigger problem was PPE. And in the beginning, that's why everything shut down, is because there was not enough available PPE, and when you're putting another person in that room so many times, and when we were trying to figure out, based on old PPE standards, how to put staff in and out of the room, we were looking at, we had a 2-week supply, a 3-week supply of this or that, and we're adding another potential 10 to 12 people a day that are going to be going in and out of the rooms that are for educational purposes and not for direct patient care purposes. The decision here was made based on that versus, no, we don't want other people coming in because we don't know how the disease works, or we don't want to potentially infect somebody, or those things. The conversation was purely PPE.
That makes sense.
So not that helps
yeah.
so much, because we're going to have the same problem this fall if we get hit to any extent, because let's face it, Oregon has been pretty lucky thus far.
Right, yeah, so that's kind of just why I wanted to mention that. And what like I said, we ended up having to send 90% of our students to one facility, and we kept them out of what they considered hot zones or COVID rule-out areas to potentially minimize that sort of thing. But yeah, so it's just something to be, the board to be aware of that, that does kind of impact the future of RTs in Oregon and that sort of thing. But I appreciate that feedback.
Excellent, excellent. Good conversation. Does anybody else have anything else they want to discuss under other board business?
Hey, this is Jacob. I just wanted to follow up on a little bit on the RUC, the Rules Advisory, or the acronyms. Anyways, I consider the CCSH. I have some concerns about the recommendation. I just think that if we don't manage it, people are going to get that license and start doing stuff without our knowledge or without our involvement on it.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll take that out. We'll, because it won't be in the rules that go out to the public for public comment, so they will not have seen it. So if the public says, hey, what about this exam, you'll have to have that conversation again, because you have to take into consideration all the public comment. Does not mean you have to change your rules, but you still have to take it into consideration. And then if anybody listens in, because obviously this meeting gets posted out on the website and people can listen to it later, so people can listen in to hear your discussion about that. So hopefully they'll listen to what you have said about how you guys feel about that exam. So, but yeah, it will not be included as part of their qualifications to get licensed unless you guys agree to it. So just because the Rules Advisory Committee made a recommendation, that's just a recommendation.
They made the same recommendation he did.
Yeah. But they weren't.
But just like you're right, it won't be shown in the text.
Yeah, it won't be shown in the text, so the public will never see that it was in there.
I could do this exam doesn't qualify for license. I mean, I could do that, a rule.
Well, and that's, if the public makes a comment, then we can talk about it some more, okay. And you'll know. So if you get a bunch of comments about including that exam, and then that's where you'll want to bring some documentation that proves that it's not equivalent,
right.
And then we can talk about it even more. Okay.
Got it.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Guys, you're good. Okay, so Jacob, you should have on the second page of your call to order script should be a one-liner for adjournment.
Okay. The Respiratory Therapist and Polysomnographic Technologist Licensing Board meeting is adjourned at 11:50 a.m.
Perfect.